What is going on, everybody? Aaron here with A.V.Astronomy. Welcome back. And if this is your first time, thanks for stopping by. Today, I wanted to talk about the awesomeness of Starnet. If you're not familiar with this program, it's Starnet++. It was originally created for PixInsight, but it is available as a plugin for Photoshop as well. And what I'm going to be doing today is showing you my workflow on using Starnet. This is something I've just recently incorporated into my workflow, so it's not going to be an in-depth complete workflow of what I do. If you want to see that, please check out the previous video I just recently did that shows my complete workflow minus the new method that I add with using Starnet++. So I'll put a link in the description below for that video as well. But anyway, let's go ahead and jump on the computer here and get started so I can show you guys the power of this program and the awesome effect it has on your final image. Okay, guys, so the first thing we're going to do here is load that image that I provided a link for in the comments section so you guys can follow along. And we'll get started on this new workflow in Photoshop. So go ahead and load that image if you haven't done it already. So the basic idea here with this imaging workflow, what we're looking to do is we're going to stretch it for just the stars at first. We're going to try and get the stars looking the way we want, and then we're going to subtract the stars out, stretch the photo, the nebula portion, to the way that we see fit, to maximizing the detail out of that, and then we're going to mask the stars back in. So I've seen videos of astrophotographers using Starnet to remove stars or just to have a starless image, but AstroEd was the first astrophotographer I saw post a video on using this method to actually editing and then masking back in. There's some differences on my approach on how I do this, and also I wanted to show you guys a start to finish complete look of how that works out. So anyway, without any further ado, let's get started. So you should have your image loaded into Photoshop right here, and like I said, the first thing we're going to do is perform some edits to just get the stars looking the way we want. So let's start with duplicating our layer, Control J, and then going and pressing Control M to do an initial stretch. We'll do an arc sine 30. If you don't have the arc sine stretches loaded into Photoshop, I'll put a link in the description for that as well. You can download them off of Cloudy Night's forums and have that plugin installed into Photoshop. So let's go ahead and do that initial stretch. Hit OK. And as you can see here with this sensor, there's some overscan area that needs to be cropped out. So let's go ahead and do that. Using the crop tool, drag that in just like so. Enter, and there we go. And let's go ahead and flatten that image. I went to Layer, Flatten, right there. And let's duplicate that again with Control J. All right, now let's do a levels adjustment. Control L, and drag that slider down just to where the data starts. And let's perform another stretch. Control M. We'll do arc sine 10 this time. Remember, we're not trying to stretch the data for the nebula so much yet. We're just looking at getting the stars the way we prefer without having them blown out and bloated from stretching the image with the stars in it. All right, so that's starting to look pretty good to me as far as the brightness level and the size of the stars. I think we're looking pretty good there. So let's flatten this out. Layer, flatten. Control J to copy that layer, and we're going to remove this light pollution. I have found the easiest way to just going to blur, average, which averages all the colors in the scene, and then clicking on the background layer image here, going over to image, apply image, and then making sure you have this set to subtract. It may be a normal when you first bring it up the first time. Make sure you go down to subtract. I do an offset of 25. You can do 30, 20, whatever. This just offsets the brightness of the image when you do that. I feel 25 is a good range for my preference. Okay, so now we can delete this top layer. Click on this layer here and drag it there. The light pollution is now gone, and we can already start to see some of that nebula coming through, even though we haven't really worked on it yet. All right, let's get the star color. There's a little bit left in there, but even with those two stretches, you start to lose it. So let's recover that star color. So what we're going to do is duplicate our layer, Control J, and we're going to create a mask. So go over here to Select, go down to Color Range, and make sure you're using highlights. Now, the idea here is to select all the stars, and maybe a little bit of the nebula is fine, but we don't want to select the background. We don't want to add additional color noise into the background. So this is why we're using this mask. So get your mask looking about like this. That selection looks pretty good to me there. We're going to expand it just a little bit. Go to Select, Modify, Expand, and we'll do 2 pixels. There we go. Now let's make a mask, and you just click on this little mask icon right here and press alternate, hold the alternate key and left click, and you can bring up the mask and actually see what it looks like. That looks pretty good. We got some of the nebula selected there, background is deselected, and the stars are selected. In Photoshop, white reveals, black conceals. So whatever is black will not be affected by the adjustments you make, and whatever is white will. So let's click back on the actual image, this layer right here, and let's make our color adjustments. We're going to bring up the color saturation slider, Control U, and we're going to get a little aggressive with this because we got to recover that star color. I think around 70-ish or so. This looks pretty good. 75, 78, 75. I'm going to go with 77. Go to Mode here, the drop-down box under your Layers panel, and change that to Color. And that looks about right for me, guys. So here's the part where we're going to use Starnet to remove the stars from this image. So let's flatten this out. Flatten image. And we're going to save it. And we're going to call it under, see, I'm going to put this under my edited folder. You can just put it in whatever folder system you have set up. I'm going to call it Stars Only. All right, so we've saved that image. Let's minimize Photoshop. And let's go into Starnet. All right, and let's bring up that image. Let's see here. And it should be right here under edited, stars only. All right. So what you want to do is drag this image into Starnet. If you haven't used Starnet before, download Starnet. You can Google it. I'll put a link in the description to help you find it. It's easy to install, and then it's very easy to use. You drag the image you want to remove the stars from into the folder, the Starnet folder. And in this case, since we're doing a color image, if you were using a DSLR or a one-shot color camera like I'm using, you would drag the image into RGB Starnet++. And then it runs through its processing here of removing the stars. This will take a few minutes, take a little while, so I'm just going to speed through and fast forward through this part here so you guys don't have to sit through all this. and we'll come back up and bring this back up in Photoshop. Okay, so we've loaded our starless image into Photoshop. The next thing we want to do to create a star mask that we'll mask back in later, since we got the stars looking pretty good the way we want, and you can still tweak them further once we mask them back in, we're going to make an image that has just stars. So this is the part where we're going to subtract this image from this image. So all we got to do is we're going to select this image, or I'm sorry, select your starred image, go to Image, Apply Image, go to Subtract, and change it to Starless. And change your offset to about, you can do a 1 if you want it straight black, but I like a little more brightness in the background just to make it a little more natural. See, it clips out some of the stars in the background if you go all the way down to a 1, but if you change your offset to like a 10 or even a 15, you gain back some of that star detail in the background. So we'll do 10. Offset at 10. All right, and now we've got an image that has just the stars. So we've got our starless and just the stars. So let's move on to this here. And we're going to first clean up some of the artifacts that were left behind from the Starnet removal. Okay, so we've got our starless image and we've got our image we're working on. Okay, so here we go. We've cleaned up some of these artifacts. I would take the time to go through this with a fine-tooth comb, make sure you get every little artifact there is. It'll make for a better final result, okay? But we're going to go ahead and move on with the tutorial here. Let's create a mask here. So we're going to go to Select Color Range. And we want to just stretch this nebula. So that actually looks pretty good. 88%, 72 range. And then hit Mask. This is what it looks like. Let's adjust that a little bit. And don't worry about this section over here. This is a stacking artifact because I had to change compositions from night 1 to night 2. Didn't have to, but I ended up doing it because of something I screwed up. So anyway, we'll crop that out at the end. So don't worry about that at this point. All right, so let's smooth that mask. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur, 2 pixels. Let's smooth it out a little bit. And then let's pull up the curves dialog box, Control M. And let's just manually stretch this. Let's pull this slider up here to brighten up the whites, but we want to keep the background dark. So drag this back down, increase the contrast. Right about, no, let's leave it right about there. Okay. So what we're looking to do is just stretch the nebula area. So let's try that. Control M. I also want to point out the way I'm doing these arc sign stretches is really not the way it suggests in the Cloudy Nights forum that where you download these arc sign stretches. There's a tutorial in there by Mark Shelley, Shark Melly, something like that. And the method he recommends, which I think in some cases, especially if you have more nebula and less stars, I don't know, I played around with it. I'm not 100% convinced on using that method every time, but it does involve, it's really a whole nother tutorial. I won't go into details about it, but there is another way to use these to minimize star bloat. But when you're doing a starless edit, you really don't need to do that. But it's totally personal preference on that. Anyway, I digress. Let's get back to the thing at hand here. Let's do ArcSign 10. There we go. So that stretched out the data a little bit more. Let's go to the Levels tab, Control L. Bring that back a little bit. And let's try another stretch, Control M. I'm totally experimenting here, guys, to see how this stretches out. Okay. Let's go Control L. Slide that over a little bit. There we go. All right, now let's pull up Camera Raw Filter. And let's boost the clarity. That's going to bring out the detail in the nebula some more. There we go. Let's boost the vibrance and saturation a little bit. Bring back some of that color. Okay. And let's go to the Detail tab and go to Noise Reduction. Just a little bit. There's really not a whole lot in this image, but we'll use that just modestly, sparingly. Okay. So there we have that. Let's flatten this out. Control J. And now we can kind of see some more corrections that need to be made here. Some cleanup with a healing brush. And just as before, actually I'm going to worry we're going to crop this side out, so let's not worry about that part. And I'm just clicking on over with the healing brush. We want to leave the nebula alone, just the star artifacts, especially if it's a larger star, it's going to leave behind a larger artifact. So let's just blot those out. Okay. All right, that cleaned up pretty good. Here's a before and after. Look at that. Before, after. All right. I think that's about as much. You know, this particular image, guys, the guiding was really poor. I had a hard time keeping the guiding performance up. It just, seeing was not great, and my guiding performance was not as good as it should have been. You know, long story short. So your images do suffer a little bit. It softens the nebula a little bit, and it also may give you some egg-shaped stars on some of them. Is what it is. At least I got the image, right? All right. That's looking pretty good, I think. So now what we want to do is mask this back in with the main image. And we'll do our final touches after that. So all you do is you take, well, first of all, let's flatten this. So layer, flatten. And all you do is you take this image here, press Control A, Control C, go tab over to the other image, Control V, and you paste it right on top. And then under your blending mode, under Layers tab, you're going to go click down, and AstroEd recommends using either screen or linear dodge add. I think this better, the linear dodge add over screen. I think I agree with him on that. It gives the stars just a little bit more punch. And there you go. That's the stretched image with the stars back in it. At this point, we can just do some final touches. So let's do that. First of all, let's flatten this image out. Let's crop out this section here. I wish I hadn't done that, but it is what it is. So let's crop that out. Make for a little bit better composition anyway. Okay. Now, I'm still going to go into Camera Raw Filter and make some tweaks here. Let's see what happens when we apply a minimum filter to these already reduced stars. And just to see what we get here. Color range, let's go to highlights. We just want the stars selected there. Okay. Let's go over to the lasso tool. Hold down alternate key and select. We don't want to select the nebula, so let's deselect that. If you hold down alternate key, it deselects. And then you come back to this circle marquee and we can select, you got to hold down shift and we can add to the selection. So we want this star, all these stars that we, let's try that one again. There we go. And just these few stars here that we deselected, but we don't want to minimize the nebulosity. I don't think it does a whole lot to it, but just in case. Same thing up here. Let's deselect this alternate. And you can use the same marquee. Boom. And let's hold down Shift and just select the stars. There we go. All right, that looks pretty good there. Let's press Control H to hide the selection. It's still selected, but this way we can have a live view of what it looks like when we minimize these. So Filter, Other, Minimum. We want to maintain roundness. And yeah, just a minimal. I just did 1 pixel here, guys. They're already pretty small, but look how much it cleans it up, though. Even more so than before. So it just dials those stars back just enough to let that nebula punch through a little bit better. And there you have it. I love that. Let's flatten that out. And just look at your stars. You got nice, good star color. They're not bloated or overstretched. I really think this is the best way. With some images, it's going to be a little more difficult than others, cleaning up your starless image, but I think it's worth the time and effort to do it. You can go into Camera Raw Filter here for some final tweaks. And if you just want to tweak the nebula, which I would highly recommend. Oops, let's Control J. There we go. And let's do one more mask here. Color range. Let's just select. Let's see if we can do sampled colors. And just sample the nebula. Well, we need more than that. Let's see here. That might do. Let's just try that. Mask it. Let's take a look at the mask. Let's pull up curves. Control M. Let's darken that a bit. You want to play around with this so that it's just mainly picking the nebula. Let's try this. Okay, let's do a filter, blur, Gaussian blur. That's good there. And let's tighten that up a bit. So let's paint. Make sure it's on black, and it is. Let's paint this area here. We don't want to add any color so much to anything else, just the nebula. All right, so let's paint that here. Let's go with this. If it doesn't work, we can always tweak it, but let's see what this does. All right, let's go to Camera Raw Filter. Basic. Let's see what happens just if there's any more. Oh yeah, we can still do a clarity punch there. Look at that, guys. Man. Right there. And let's add a vibrance. Ooh, a little too much there. Just maybe a 20. All right, let's hit OK. I think I like that. Boom. There we go. Let's check levels one more time. I think I'm going to leave it as it is, though. And guys, there you have it. This is IC 2169, edited using the Starnet Starless method. I was really wanting y'all to get a chance to see and edit from start to finish. It is a bit more challenging, and it will take a bit more time, but as you can see in the end results here, it's worth it. Like I said earlier, the guiding was really not great. I had poor scene conditions as usual, and so it suffered even with the bad guiding. I still think we got a pretty decent image here. So that's it, y'all. So if you have any questions about this tutorial, shoot me some questions down in the comments below. I'll be glad to help you out any way I can. And also wanted to mention, if you guys are interested in any of the gear I use or recommend, I got some links in the description below to OPT telescopes They're the largest U.S. supplier of astronomy equipment. They've got a great team of people over there, and they've got really good stuff. So check them out. Also, if you guys ever have any ideas or requests on what future videos you'd like to see, let me know in the comments section. Or if you're on Twitter, shoot me a message on Twitter or on Instagram. My ultimate goal here is to help you guys get the most out of your images. So if you've got a request and I see a common request for a certain type of video, let me know. I'll see what I can do to put something together for you. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. God bless. Keep on looking up, keep on seeking. Merry Christmas, and until next time, clear skies. Take care.